Time caller line, you're on the air. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Art. This is Marcy calling from Juneau, Alaska.
Well, Juneau, Alaska. Hi, Marcy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. My husband and I have just started watching your show, and we enjoyed a great deal.
Do you actually sit there and stare at the radio?
Well, actually, it's on TV. We have our scanner channel on.
Oh, I see. All right.
And I have a story that has a very good moral behind it, not to play with the Ouija board. My very best friend used to babysit in a house, and she babysat for years there. The house was always, a warm, happy home.
Mm-hmm.
And a new family moved into the home, and she was recommended to the family as a babysitter. And she began babysitting for this new family, and the house began to change. It became a very gloomy house. Very odd things would go on. The dog would go crazy at, any time.
You think it was because of her?
Well, I'll tell you what I think it was after
All right.
the beginning portion. There was a 2-year-old little girl, and she would go into these trances. She wouldn't, you could stand in front of her and scream, and she wouldn't come out of it, and it would last for quite a while.
Oh, that's weird.
And I have a 2-year-old myself, and I know that's like impossible. But she would go through these weird things that were going on. The kids would never wake up at night. A 5-year-old and 2-year-old, which I think is very odd myself because I have children.
Yes.
And several things would happen, and this, grew more and more, and she grew more and more uneasy about babysitting there. And one night, she decided to give the children a bath because they really needed a bath. The mother had changed, the kids had changed, the house had changed, everything was kind of yuck. And so she gave the kids a bath, and she washed the little boy in the tub, and the little girl, who was 2 years old, was petrified of being washed. And she was washed in the sink because she could sit in there and it was easier for her to handle the little girl.
Okay, we've got to hurry.
Okay. And eventually, she put them to bed. They never woke up. She was sitting, talking on the phone with her boyfriend, and all of a sudden the water in the bathroom, in the tub and the sink, just shot on full force, and there was no one in there. And so finally she got the courage to go peek at the bathroom, and the water turned off.
You mean right before her eyes?
Right. And later on she found out that the woman had had a priest come in. She never babysat for them again. She told them she's never going to babysit again. A priest had come into the house and blessed the house, tried to rid it of the evil spirit, and there was a Ouija board involved. The woman threw it out the door, but eventually the house became abandoned, and no one had lived in it for, I would say, about 10 years.
Story of the babysitter. All right, thank you, dear. From Juneau, Alaska. That's the capital, by the way, of Alaska. You can only get to it by air or water. Did you know that about Juneau and Alaska? I'm Art Bell, and this is CBC. Hey, Art, 2 cousins of mine who are brothers slept in the basement of an old house about 25 years ago. Both were teenagers. The younger was very angry with his father, who was divorced from his wife. One night, the boys drew a pentagram on the basement floor surrounded by candles and tried to raise a spirit to perform some evil act against their father. Well, after a while, with nothing having happened, the boys went to bed. In the basement, there was an anvil that was so heavy the boys together couldn't even budge it an inch. Early in the morning, the boys were awakened by the sound of that anvil scraping across the basement floor. They turned on the lights, and indeed the anvil had moved several feet. Needless to say, they were frightened out of their wits. The elder of the boys never again would go anywhere near the basement. That's from Dennis in Kansas City. On our first-time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. This is Brad calling from San Diego.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, I was going to call with this story last year, and I get so frightened just thinking about it. I chickened out, so I'm going to give it a try this year.
All right, give it your best shot.
It was in Hawaii about 2 years ago. My wife was asleep, and I was out watching one of the shows they have at Waikiki every night. And there was two enormous Hawaiian men that just sang like birds, and he was married to this beautiful young woman who would dance. And as I watched this woman during the evening, there was something about this woman that just completely bothered me. It just unnerved me. Something unnatural about the way she danced. And as I watched her, at one point, I had a distinct feeling that I was watching a snake dance. It was just for a second, just kind of like an overshadowing, just something.
I understand.
And we had this eye contact, and she looked at me like, oh, the secret's out. And I was completely unnerved, and I walked back to the room and fell asleep. And was only asleep for maybe a couple minutes when my wife let out the most blood-curdling scream, jumped out of bed, ran to the door, was clawing at the door, trying to get out of the room. And
wait. What was clawing at the door?
My wife was. She jumped. She woke up screaming, jumped out of bed, ran to the door of our hotel room, and was clawing at the door on her knees, trying to get out of the room, just screaming, trying to get out of this room. And I brought her up, and she said she came to, and there was something standing over the bed, looking down at her. And it was just a couple of moments later. And I did my best to calm her down, and she went back to sleep almost immediately, almost like if you were talking to someone who had been walking in their sleep. And in the morning we spoke, and I had the distinct feeling that I had seen this lady dancing, that her familiar or whatever it was she used to do her act, had seen me and followed me back to the room. And the second I'd fallen asleep, this thing had hovered over my wife and woken her up and just...
That is truly frightening.
It scares me to death just saying it.
Oh, well, thank you for bringing it to us. This was the right night. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Bye.
Take care. Familiar. Do you know what a familiar is? Maybe you don't want to.
This is CBC.
Wildcard Line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Art. This is TJ from Colorado Springs.
Yes, sir.
It's a long story. I was into all the paranormal stuff. Had a friend who said he was a wizard, which intrigued me, and went through the stuff. We ended up going to Genesee Park at the summer solstice to see tree spirits. We got up to this one point in Genesee Park, and we were sitting there doing our little thing to see this, and the air felt heavy. Everything just started feeling bad. We started seeing little red eyes peering at us.
Red eyes?
Yeah, and they kept coming and stuff. So we decided to get out of there.
Good move.
We started going back to our car, and on the way back to the car, I looked off to my left, and there was, well, no, it was my right. There was a meadow, and something caught my eye, and I was just, like, fixed on the spot. What I saw was, like, gray figures out of the corner of my eye making a circle and moving, like, counterclockwise around a glowing, like a fire or something. And I didn't think anything of it until all of a sudden my friend stopped and turned and looked where I was looking and said, "Look at that, they're dancing." And at this point, everybody in the group freaked. We started running. And as we started to run, there were other gray figures coming from both sides of the road, following us like scouts and stuff, just coming at us. And I was freaking. At this point, I was into a lot of things. I had a dragon necklace on that had been a protection spell put on it by Wiccans, you know, witches and stuff.
Yes.
And at this point, I grabbed, you know, my necklace, and I was just like, "Dragons, please help us." At this point, a bright light shined in our face, and we all of a sudden, all the heaviness and everything dropped. We all stopped. Turned out to be a golden police officer who detained us. Some of us had warrants out for parking tickets and whatnot. We all gave the IDs. Everything went okay. We left. There's only one road going in and out, and we watched for him coming back, and he never came back. And we were all freaked out, but the next day we got our courage up and went back up in two separate groups without talking to each other.
Yeah.
We went up. I got about halfway up the mountain into the park. I saw my friend's car, which had just been redone and everything,